on the News Channel 5 network. This is Score on Business.
Hey, welcome to Score on Business. I'm Pete Hendricks, a serial entrepreneur, and your host for today. Score has many resources to help you succeed with your business. Check out our website at scorenashville.org. Okay, our first guest today is Joanne Eckton. Joanne, thank you for being here.
Pete, I'm honored to be part of this. Thank you.
And she owns Eckton Enterprises. Joanne is founder of Eckton Enterprises and is a business performance architect. She's helped many organizations raise the level of performance of critical teams. So, Joanne, tell us about a time when you went into a company where things weren't so good, and when you left, they were good.
Okay, I'd be happy to. Actually, I'd like to give you two examples, if I may. But,
okay.
Let me start with a question. How many people have you met who are in jobs that they can't wait to get out of? They can't wait to escape. They want to quit. They want to start a business. They want to retire. They just want to get out, right?
A lot.
Most people you meet, right? If you look at statistics, it's terrible.
Yeah, only 70%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in a situation like that, you're not going to get your best performance out of your team. What I really focus on when I go into a company is figuring out how to change that work environment so that people are happy to be there, they're happy to show up and come to work, and they do their best work. And when you start doing those things, that's when performance can change. So I said I'd give you two examples, and I want to give you two because I want to give you one from a very large company and one from a very small company, because the techniques are the same and they're just as effective regardless of who you are. So first, there was a company I worked with, which is a Fortune 100 company, and they had just gone through a merger. And so imagine the culture after a merger where everybody's unsure of what's going to happen. People were being laid off. Some of the really good, talented people were leaving. The people who were staying were nervous about what was going to happen. And, you know, it really just wasn't a good situation. So I was working with the technology department in this company, and that department was at the time about 200-300 people. And what we started with was we got very clear on what the top 5 priorities for that department were. So what was the impact we needed that team to have? And impact is actually kind of the core center of this framework I've developed over the years, which is about how to maximize teams. And so once you're clear on your impact, what is it that we need to do? What are we going to accomplish? And you've heard people talk about it in terms of businesses with visions and mission statements and those sorts of things. Every team should have a measure of what impact they are going to have on the business. Every team should have that. Once we'd laid out those 5, what we did was we started aligning people to each of those 5 major programs. And surrounding the impact, the rest of the framework, there's 5 tenets. The first is about communication. So are we bringing in the right people to talk across the teams about what's happening in the company, what's happening with them? So look at that, think of that situation. So you're in a situation where you were working on one major project within a team aligned to that initiative, and you have no idea what's going on in the other 4. Right? So we were very intentional about putting forums in place to share what was happening across the board. And so communication was very key at that point, and throughout any life cycle of a company, but especially when there's all that kind of uncertainty. So that was one of them. The other was collaboration. So like I mentioned, these were technical initiatives. These were things that the technical teams needed to do, but technical teams exist to serve the business. And so we brought the business partners in and formed alliances so where they could collaborate together and work on problems together. So that was the second construct. Okay. The third was we started looking at each person individually. Each person, and I know you know this, is each person has their own strengths, their own talents. How do you know what they are? Right? So you have those conversations, you talk to people about where they belong and how do you maximize them inside that team. And I mentioned the concept, and we all know it's really important for businesses to have this mission statement, that we want to get alignment on this mission statement, but each individual has their own. They have their own mission statement. So how many times have you heard of a leader in a company who thinks they have a really key resource who's aligned with them on their mission and is surprised when they decide to leave? And it's not necessarily because they weren't aligned, it was because they had their own motivations of things they wanted to do. So in some of these more technical initiatives, these big type things, you'll have a business person who's looking at what's the impact to revenue, to growth, to customer churn, all those kinds of measurements. That's how they measure the importance of a project. A technical person may not care about any of that. They might care about, hey, I get to use this new technology, right? I get to learn some new skills that I can take forward to my next job. And so how do you know what those are without asking them? Right? We had one individual, to give you an example, when we talked to her, asked her where she wanted to be in 5 years, retired. She just wanted to be retired. So she was coasting. And this was a person with a lot of talent and a lot of skills who was coasting, and that's not a good situation.
No.
And in some cases, you know, you could leave it like that and then something bad would generally happen. But we didn't do that, right? We talked to her about what she wanted next. What were you going to do after retirement? What were the skills you needed to have to do those things? And then how can we help you develop them on the job? And she went on to lead the company's first multi-million-dollar Agile project because we had given her that alignment to her own personal goals. So pulling out individuals and understanding what's important to them, that's a key tenet, right? So I think now I've done 3.
Okay, and before you go to the next one, let us take a quick break.
Okay.
And so when we come back, we're going to go to the 4th tenet.
All right.
Remember, check out scorenashville.org. We'll be right back.